Autumn in Chicago was beautiful. The wind from Lake Michigan embraced the city, and couples walking along the golden tree-lined streets looked like figures in a painting. Emily Thompson was smiling as she gazed at the scenery from the window of her real estate company on the 32nd floor of an office building. She felt the baby in her belly move gently and unconsciously placed her hand on it. "We'll be able to meet soon." Now 6 months pregnant, Emily's body continued to change slowly. Her morning sickness had mostly subsided, and she felt the joy of entering her stable period each day. This first child they had been blessed with was the most precious treasure for her and her husband Robert. Her husband Robert was an accountant, a meticulous and responsible man. The two had been married for 5 years, understood each other deeply, and had built a quiet, stable happiness together. Robert also perfectly understood Emily's severe nut allergy, always calling ahead to restaurants when dining out to confirm about allergies, and carefully explaining to waiters at restaurants. "Do you have your EpiPen with you?" This was his catchphrase. For Emily, nuts were a dangerous presence that could threaten her life. Even a small amount could cause severe allergic reactions leading to breathing difficulties, and in the worst case, could be fatal. However, thanks to Robert's careful attention and loving support, Emily was able to live her daily life with peace of mind. The couple had a special tradition. Every year on their wedding anniversary, they would always dine at Le Jardin, an upscale French restaurant downtown. The restaurant they had visited on their first date offered a panoramic view of the night scenery from the prime window seats, and the dishes created by chef Marco Sanchez were as beautiful as works of art. The restaurant staff also perfectly understood Emily's allergy, allowing them to spend their special night with peace of mind every year. On a weekend afternoon, Emily and Robert were visiting a baby goods store in the suburbs. The bright store was filled with various products for use from newborns to toddlers. The couple walked hand in hand, selecting cribs, car seats, and tiny clothes. "This yellow baby outfit is lovely and can be used regardless of the baby's gender," Emily said, picking up a soft yellow romper. "Whatever you choose will look perfect," Robert smiled gently while placing his hand on his wife's rounded belly. "I still can't believe I'm going to be a dad soon." "Me neither. But I'm so happy." When they got home, the couple continued preparing the baby's room. They hung a small mobile with animal drawings on the pale cream-colored walls and arranged picture books on the bookshelf. Next to the crib that Robert had assembled was a white rocking chair that Emily had chosen. "I'll sing lullabies here," Emily said, sitting in the chair and talking to the baby in her belly. "Both Daddy and Mommy are looking forward to meeting you so much." Robert knelt beside his wife and put his ear to her belly. "I can hear it, the heartbeat," his voice trembled with emotion. "Such a tiny life is going to change our entire lives." While preparing dinner, Emily savored her happiness. Cooking with Robert in the kitchen and enjoying conversation slowly at the table. Such everyday moments were more precious to her than anything else. Since becoming pregnant, Robert had become even more gentle, carrying heavy things for her, reaching for items in high places. He did everything for her. "Next week is our wedding anniversary," Emily said, looking at the calendar. "Of course, I've made reservations at Le Jardin. I've also contacted Chef Marco to confirm about your allergy again." Robert had carefully planned everything. "He says he'll prepare a special menu that's safe for you to eat during pregnancy." "Thank you. Because you're here, I can feel at ease." That night, as Emily lay in bed with her head on Robert's chest, she felt the baby's movements in her belly. Only the sound of the clock echoed in the quiet bedroom, and their peaceful breathing overlapped. Emily closed her eyes and imagined the life they would have as a family of 3. On the morning of October 15th, Emily unusually woke up before her husband. The soft morning light streaming through the bedroom window illuminated their wedding photo on the bedside table. 5 years ago today, the two had vowed eternal love to each other. While it had been just the two of them then, this year would be their anniversary as 3. Emily quietly got up from bed and gently spoke to the baby in her belly. Good morning, little angel. Today is Mommy and Daddy's special day. Let's celebrate together. While preparing breakfast in the kitchen, a still sleepy Robert appeared. His messy brown hair and slightly puffy eyes looked endearing. Good morning, my beautiful wife. Robert embraced Emily from behind and placed his hand on her belly. Today marks our 5th wedding anniversary. It feels like it went by incredibly fast. Happy times pass quickly. Emily turned around and kissed her husband. I've been truly happy being with you these 5 years. On the breakfast table were French toast and fruit salad that Emily had specially prepared, along with Robert's favorite coffee. The two sat facing each other and talked about their married life so far. Do you remember? When we went to Paris on our honeymoon, you fell in front of the Eiffel Tower and I fell down with you, Robert said laughing. I was embarrassed then, but now it's a wonderful memory. We got the photo taken properly too, Emily replied with a smile. Speaking of which, that photo is still displayed in the living room. After breakfast, before leaving for work, Robert presented Emily with a small box. An anniversary present. I wanted to give it to you before tonight's dinner. When she opened the box, there was a beautiful pendant inside. A heart-shaped gold piece with small diamonds embedded, and E and R forever engraved in the center. Robert, it's so lovely, tears welled up in Emily's eyes. I've become so emotional since getting pregnant, it's troublesome. I'm glad you like it. This pendant has special meaning, Robert explained gently. Look at the back. On the back of the pendant was engraved, Our First Baby 2024, with a small footprint mark. A commemoration of our first baby. Emily's voice trembled with emotion. I'll treasure it forever. After Robert left for work, Emily began preparing for their anniversary alone. First, she had her hair styled at the salon, then purchased a new maternity dress at the department store. The elegant deep blue dress beautifully showed her belly's silhouette. In the afternoon, Emily was talking with her colleague Sarah at the real estate office. Sarah was also a mother of 2 children. You're having an anniversary dinner tonight. How lovely. Where are you going? Sarah asked with interest. Our annual Le Jardin. It's where we had our first date, Emily answered happily. That upscale French place. Chef Marco's cuisine is truly artistic. But will your allergy be okay? Robert has arranged everything perfectly, so I'm not worried. The staff at that restaurant know me well too. During lunch, Emily felt a slight dizziness. This was common during the 2nd trimester of pregnancy, but she was a little concerned. When she had her blood pressure checked at the office medical room, it was slightly low but within a normal range. Blood pressure tends to fluctuate during pregnancy, so don't worry. But don't overdo it tonight, Nurse Martha gently advised. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Emily received a loving message from Robert. To my beloved Emily. Today is our special day. Meeting you, marrying you, and now having new life growing in your belly is the greatest happiness of my life. I'll be waiting for you at Le Jardin tonight. I love you. Robert. Reading the message, Emily forgot she was in the office and started crying. While her worried colleagues looked on, Sarah put her arm around her. Those are tears of happiness. I'm really envious that you have such a wonderful husband. When she finished work and returned home, a large bouquet had been delivered to the entrance. The bouquet made of white roses and pink gerbils came with a card that read, To my beautiful wife and the fruit of our love. Emily took a shower and changed into the newly purchased maternity dress. Looking in the mirror, she could see the beautiful glow characteristic of pregnant women on her face. She put on the pendant from Robert and applied light makeup. At 5:30 in the evening, Robert came home. He had also left work early to prepare for their anniversary. While changing his suit and putting on the tie Emily had chosen for him, he couldn't hide his excitement. You're truly beautiful. You've been glowing even more since becoming pregnant, Robert said, looking at his wife. "You're very handsome too. You're just as handsome as you were at our wedding 5 years ago." The two took each other's hands and left their apartment. In the elevator, Emily felt slight dizziness again, but she kept quiet, not wanting to worry her husband. She told herself it must be from excitement. When getting into the car in the parking lot, Robert carefully checked Emily's condition. "How do you feel? Is there anything unusual? Do you have your EpiPen?" "I'm fine, you worry too much," Emily answered with a smile. "Tonight is our special night. It will be perfect." In the car, the two talked about their first date 5 years ago. That day, Robert had nervously spilled wine, and Emily couldn't stop laughing. Chef Marco had specially made them dessert with "Welcome to Love" written in chocolate. "I still remember that dessert. It was so beautiful, I felt bad eating it," Emily said nostalgically. "Maybe Chef Marco will prepare something special again tonight," Robert answered with anticipation. As the downtown night scenery began to shine beautifully, the two drove toward Le Jardin. Emily looked out the window and spoke to the baby in her belly. "We're almost at the place where Mommy and Daddy had their first date. It will become a special place for you too." While driving, Robert gazed at his wife's profile. Emily's face, illuminated by the sunset, looked as beautiful as an angel. In his heart, he was building anticipation for the new life that would begin as a family of 3. Le Jardin was one of the most elegant French restaurants in downtown Chicago. When they opened the heavy glass doors, the warm light of chandeliers and classical music welcomed them. Andrew, the manager dressed in a black suit, greeted them politely as always. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, congratulations on your wedding anniversary. It's an honor to celebrate this day with you every year." Andrew's voice was filled with heartfelt blessings. "We have your usual table ready." Emily and Robert were led to the prime window seat. They could see all of Chicago's night scenery, and Lake Michigan's surface sparkled in the distance. It was the memorable seat where they had sat on their first date 5 years ago and every anniversary since. "The view is beautiful no matter how many times I see it," Emily said, looking out the window as she sat at the table. "With you here, any view looks twice as beautiful," Robert smiled while taking his wife's hand. Michael, the waiter, brought water and bread. Michael was a polite young man in his early 30s who remembered the Thompson couple well. "Thank you for having us again tonight. I heard that Chef Marco has prepared a special menu," Michael said with a smile. Robert became serious. "Michael, let me confirm once more just to be safe. My wife has a severe nut allergy. Even a small amount could be life-threatening, so please make absolutely sure the kitchen is careful." "Of course, Mr. Thompson. I'll inform Chef Marco again." "Mrs. Emily's dishes will be prepared completely separately," Michael nodded deeply. "We have an EpiPen with us, but please keep emergency services in mind in case something happens," Robert explained with utmost care. Michael headed to the kitchen and had thorough discussions with Chef Marco. However, in the kitchen that night was someone different from usual. A woman named Jessica Miller was working as temporary staff. She wasn't a formal chef and usually handled different duties, but that night she was helping with food preparation due to short staffing. Jessica was Robert's former affair partner. A year ago, they had had a brief relationship. Robert, driven by guilt, had quickly ended the relationship and hadn't told Emily anything about it. However, Jessica felt she had been abandoned unilaterally and harbored deep resentment. She had secretly monitored Robert's social media and knew that the couple celebrated their anniversary at Le Jardin every year on this day. In the kitchen, while Chef Marco was explaining about Emily's dish, Jessica quietly listened in. "Mrs. Thompson's dish must absolutely not come into contact with any nuts. Use separate cooking utensils, and I'll personally check the plating at the end," Marco gave strict instructions. Jessica pretended to understand on the surface, while planning something terrible in her heart. She had prepared a small bottle of nut oil in advance and hidden it in her apron pocket. At the table, Emily and Robert were looking at the wine list. Emily avoided alcohol due to her pregnancy, and Robert also ordered non-alcoholic sparkling wine to match her. Cheers, the two lightly clinked their glasses. To our wonderful 5 years and the new life that's about to begin. As appetizers, Emily was served a special seafood salad, and Robert received foie gras tranche. The two ate deliciously while reminiscing about their memories. By this time next year, we'll have the baby with us too. Let's hire a babysitter and come here again, Emily said happily. Yes. It will be our first anniversary as a family of 3, Robert's eyes shone with love. In the kitchen, preparation for the main dishes was progressing. A specially prepared roasted chicken for Emily and wine-braised beef for Robert were being prepared. Chef Marco carefully checked Emily's dish, confirming there was no contamination with nuts. However, while Marco was concentrating on finishing another dish, Jessica quickly approached Emily's plate. After confirming no one was around, she took the bottle of nut oil from her pocket and dripped several drops onto the surface of the chicken. The oil was invisible to the eye and was masked by the dish's aroma. Now that woman will never be able to interfere with Robert's happiness again, Jessica coldly muttered to herself. When the dishes were brought out, Emily and Robert admired the beautiful presentation. Chef Marco's cuisine is truly like artwork, Emily said, looking at the chicken. He made it especially for you. Please eat with confidence, Robert smiled gently. Emily took her first bite. The chicken was perfectly cooked, and the delicate sauce created an exquisite flavor. She continued eating, taking second and third bites while enjoying pleasant conversation with Robert. However, after about 5 minutes, Emily's expression changed. Her face suddenly turned red and her breathing became labored. Emily, what's wrong? Robert asked worriedly. I feel somehow. Emily couldn't finish her sentence. Suddenly, she was struck by severe nausea and covered her mouth with her hand. Are you okay? Robert started to stand up, but at that moment, Emily vomited violently. The white tablecloth was soiled, and nearby customers turned around in surprise. Robert. I can't breathe. Emily's voice was thin and trembling. Her face was swelling bright red, and hives began appearing around her neck. It's anaphylactic shock. Call an ambulance. Robert shouted while taking the EpiPen from Emily's bag. His hands were shaking, but he didn't hesitate to inject it into his wife's thigh. Michael frantically called for the manager, and Andrew immediately requested an ambulance. The restaurant became chaotic, and other customers watched with concern. Emily's breathing became increasingly difficult, and her consciousness began to fade. Robert gripped his wife's hand and desperately continued speaking to her. Hang in there, Emily. The ambulance will be here soon. You and the baby will be fine. However, Emily's symptoms didn't improve but rather worsened. The EpiPen's effect wasn't sufficient, and her lips turned blue-purple. The baby, our baby. Emily whispered with her last strength. The sound of the ambulance siren approaching could be heard. The paramedics rushed into the restaurant and quickly assessed Emily's condition. Severe anaphylactic shock. We need to transport her to the hospital immediately, the paramedic leader calmly explained the situation. Emily was placed on a stretcher and fitted with an oxygen mask. Robert rode in the ambulance and continued holding his wife's hand. Tears were streaming down his cheeks. You'll be okay, Emily. You'll absolutely be okay. But Emily could no longer respond. Her consciousness was fading as the ambulance raced through the night streets. Emily regained consciousness on the morning of the 3rd day. The white ceiling, the smell of disinfectant, and the machine sounds in her ears told her she was in a hospital. Tubes were attached all over her body, and an 4 needle was inserted in her left arm. Emily looked around in confusion. Her memory was hazy, and she couldn't immediately remember why she was there. "Emily, you're awake." She heard a gentle voice and Emily turned her head. There sat Robert with an exhausted expression. Having barely slept for 3 days while caring for her, his eyes were red and swollen, and stubble had grown on his cheeks. "Robert, why am I?" Emily tried to speak, but her throat was terribly dry and only a hoarse voice came out. "Would you like some water?" Robert hurriedly took water from the bedside and brought it to Emily's mouth with a straw. As the cold water moistened her throat, her memory gradually returned. "Le Jardin, anniversary dinner," Emily murmured as she remembered fragments. "I collapsed." Robert's expression darkened. He gripped his wife's hand while opening his heavy mouth. "Emily, you had severe anaphylactic shock. The doctors treated you desperately, and your life was saved. What about the baby?" Emily unconsciously placed her hand on her belly. However, there was no swelling she should have felt. Her belly was flat, returned to its pre-pregnancy state. Robert looked away, and a long silence continued. That silence told Emily the answer she most feared. "The baby, our baby." Emily's voice trembled. "Emily." Robert's voice became tearful. "The doctors did their best. But the oxygen deficiency from the anaphylactic shock continued for a long time. The baby." Emily was speechless. She couldn't accept the reality that the tiny life she had nurtured in her heart, the child she had poured her love into, was no longer in this world. Large tears overflowed from her eyes and wet her pillow. "No. No." Emily shook her head from side to side. "That can't be true. It was moving just yesterday. I was talking to it. It was responding to me." Robert was crying too. He had feared this moment for 3 days. When the doctor told him, his world collapsed. And now he had to tell his beloved wife that reality. "I'm sorry, Emily. I couldn't protect you. Suddenly, Robert's tone changed. Sadness turned to anger, and he clenched his fists. "I told you so many times to be careful about your allergy." His voice echoed in the hospital room. "Why did you eat nuts? Why didn't you use the EpiPen immediately? If you had been more careful, this wouldn't have happened." Emily was shocked by her husband's angry words. Robert had never blamed her so fiercely before. "I didn't eat anything. I didn't eat any nuts," Emily answered weakly. "Then why? Why did this happen?" Robert stood up and paced around the room. "Our baby, our future, everything is over." 3 days of fatigue and despair had driven Robert away from normal judgment. He didn't intend to blame his beloved wife, but overwhelming sadness and confusion made him unable to control his emotions. At that moment, there was a knock on the hospital room door. She thought it might be Nurse Linda coming to check, but 2 police officers entered. Detective Johnson, an older man, and Detective Rodriguez, a younger one. "Excuse us. You're Mr. and Mrs. Thompson." Detective Johnson greeted politely. "We're detectives from the Chicago Police Department. We'd like to speak with you about something." Robert was confused. "Police? Why?" "This was an accident caused by my wife's food allergy." About that, Detective Rodriguez took out his notebook. "We've received new information about the incident at Le Jardin." Emily became anxious. She couldn't understand why police would be involved. Detective Johnson continued. "One of the restaurant's kitchen staff has given us important testimony. Chef Marco Sanchez." "Chef Marco?" Robert tilted his head. "He perfectly understood my wife's allergy." "What did he say?" "According to Chef Sanchez, that night he witnessed a temporary staff member named Jessica Miller sprinkling something on Emily's dish. The atmosphere in the hospital room completely changed. Robert and Emily tried to understand the police officer's words. Sprinkling. What? Emily asked in a trembling voice. What appears to be nut oil, Detective Rodriguez answered. Ms. Miller is suspected of intentionally contaminating Emily's dish. Robert's face turned pale. Intentionally? Why would she do such a thing? Detective Johnson looked straight at Robert. Mr. Robert, does the name Jessica Miller ring any bells? Suddenly, Robert's memory came flooding back. The brief affair from a year ago. The relationship he had quickly ended, driven by guilt. The secret he could never tell Emily. Well, she is. Robert was at a loss for words. Robert. Emily stared at her husband. Who is Jessica? Robert couldn't look into his wife's eyes. Emily, I've been hiding something from you. Sir, Detective Johnson said quietly. Please come to the station. We need to hear your story in detail. Arrest? Robert was confused. I haven't done anything. Not an arrest. Voluntary questioning, Detective Rodriguez explained. However, we need your cooperation to understand the background of this case. Emily was confused. Her husband's secret, intentional poisoning, and the lost baby. Everything was like puzzle pieces that didn't connect. Robert, who is Jessica? Why did she target me? Robert took a deep breath and had to make the most difficult confession. Emily, a year ago, for a brief period. I had a relationship with her. I ended it immediately, but she seems to have held a grudge against our marriage. Emily's world collapsed again. The betrayal by her beloved husband, and as a result, the child she had lost. Everything appeared before her as a cruel reality. Your affair partner killed our baby. Emily couldn't finish her sentence. Detective Johnson gently intervened. Mrs. Emily, please rest for now. We will definitely uncover the entire truth. Robert followed the police officers out of the hospital room. Looking back, Emily was burying her face in her pillow and crying. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. He didn't know how to face the reality that his own mistake had taken away his beloved wife and child. Left alone in the hospital room, Emily was enveloped in the despair of having lost everything. Trust in her beloved husband, the new life she had nurtured in her belly, and their happy future. Everything vanished in an instant, and Emily's world had completely changed. The police questioning lasted 6 hours. Robert explained his affair in detail, describing how his relationship with Jessica had begun and how it had ended, hiding nothing. His testimony clarified the motive for the crime. The next day, Detectives Johnson and Rodriguez searched Jessica Miller's apartment. What they discovered, there was a notebook that detailed the Thompson couple's behavior patterns. Their annual anniversary dinner at Le Jardin, Emily's pregnancy, and even Robert's social media posts, everything was meticulously recorded. Furthermore, they found an empty bottle of nut oil, which became decisive physical evidence. Chef Marco Sanchez's testimony was also important. That night, I saw Jessica not touching other staff's dishes but sprinkling something only on Emily's plate. I thought it was strange, but I never imagined something like that would happen. His testimony proved it was a planned crime. Jessica was arrested and charged with attempted murder and fetal homicide. At the trial, her diary was also submitted as evidence. It vividly recorded her hatred and desire for revenge against Robert and Emily. Contents like, if that woman wasn't there, Robert would come back to me, and, I can't stand seeing those two looking so happy, revealed her twisted motives. 6 months later, Jessica was sentenced to 15 years in prison. In court, she showed no remorse to the end, coldly saying, that woman was in the way. Those words left a deep wound in Emily's heart. Repairing Emily and Robert's relationship was extremely difficult. Emily was deeply hurt by her husband's betrayal and the grief over the child lost as a result. For a while, the two continued living separately. Robert apologized daily and suggested they receive counseling, but Emily's emotional wounds wouldn't heal easily. "Because of your mistake, our baby died," Emily said through tears one day to her husband. "How can I forgive you? How can I move forward?" Robert was also deeply suffering from the tragedy his actions had caused. "I'll spend my lifetime making amends. To you and to our lost child." He was genuinely remorseful, but he couldn't change the irreversible past. The turning point came about a year after the tragedy. Emily decided to participate in couples counseling. Dr. Wilson, the counselor, taught them the importance of facing each other. Tragedy can either tear two people apart or bind them together with deeper bonds. The choice is up to you. Taking a long time, Emily and Robert gradually rebuilt their relationship. Robert fully accepted his mistake, and Emily reaffirmed that her love for her husband was stronger than her hatred. The two created a small garden for their lost child, where they began to offer quiet prayers. "Our baby was loved for sure, even though it was for a short time," Emily said to her husband in the garden one day. "That love will continue forever." Robert gripped his wife's hand. "I was saved by your strength. I couldn't have recovered alone." 2 years later, Emily became pregnant again. This time, they welcomed the new life carefully and with deep gratitude. They named their daughter, Hope, carrying their feelings for their first child. Le Jardin changed management after the incident and was reborn under a new owner. Emily and Robert never visited there again. Instead, they began celebrating their anniversaries as a family of 3 at a quiet lakeside restaurant. A true family is one that walks together through unexpected tragedies, Emily smiled at her husband while holding their daughter. Robert looked at his wife and daughter and answered, "We lost much, but we were able to find deeper love. I think that was the gift our first child taught us." As the sunset painted the lake's surface gold, the Thompson family's new story was quietly beginning. The wounds of the past would never completely heal, but through the power of love and forgiveness, they had found the courage to move forward.